There was a period of time where I just let my license go inactive, and because I was just like trying to figure out like how does TJ fit into this,
Right.
where there's thousands of competitors and not a huge success rate, for people that are in the business for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And so I did some kind of soul searching of like what is going to be my niche, and then I kind of found it in the real estate world prior to Barndo, because I'm still a broker, own my own brokerage, and kind of my niche was like I was into fix and flips, and my dad was into fix and flips. After 2008, 2009, everything wound down. Like my dad and our family were big in commercial construction, and he kind of escaped Atlanta. We were working in Atlanta all the time.
Really?
Yeah,
Oof.
we were down there. I joke and say the best thing to come out of Atlanta is I-85 North.
So true. Anything after 3 p.m. is a traffic jam, right?
Yeah, it's always a traffic jam. And but like it was just like, okay, how do I build something that I care about and then utilize it? And so I've always had a heart for like helping people. So like I kind of created this flat fee model, and that was something that intrigued me. There was actually a company that was launching up in like the New York area, and I just heard I don't even remember. I was listening to a podcast and I heard an ad, and then I started researching. But there was a company there called Purple Bricks, and they were doing this flat fee, one fixed price cost thing, and it was real low for investors to be able to go and find properties and do things. And I was like, man, I want to do that. And problem was I wasn't a broker, so like I'm just gonna sign up and go to a broker and be like, hey, by the way, I'm just gonna do this for like next to nothing. That wasn't an option, so I started researching and found a guy who had started a flat fee brokerage in South Carolina in the 80s. And he was also the guy who was the advocate for buyer's agency in the state of South Carolina. And he had, brought all these cases and like got the State Department involved and all these different things of like, how do we better represent both sides of a transaction? And like, he was a great guy to learn from. And so the way I met him was, I dug and dug and dug until I found his number. I called him and I was like, hey man, I want to come work for you. He's like, I don't hire agents. And I was like, well, you're going to hire me.
Yeah.
Because I want to learn this. And so I just made a compelling argument. And he was like, all right, fine. Like, let's go to work. And so he kind of opened the upstate up to me, and I started learning the game a little bit and dabbling in it. And, about a year after that, I got my broker's license, and he was an older guy, lived out of state, and he kind of had this philosophy of how the flat fee model worked. And he was really like mainstream MLS only features, and that was great.
Yeah.
But I was building a bunch of like reciprocating business. It's just constantly coming back because I was working with investors, and they're always going to find hawk properties, and then when they're done, they want to sell those properties. And so it just kind of fell in my lap. And so in like 2019, I just that was kind of where I fell into doing mostly that full time. And then in 2020, it became like my full time gig all the way up until Barndo started. That's all I did was just network with people. And I had this weird service that no one understood. But
because it was different.
100% different.
Yeah.
And everybody would be like, how do you make money? You're ruining the industry. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not. Like, I'm talking to people that you don't even know.
Yeah.
Like they would never call you.
Yeah.
But the flip side of it is like I constantly had between 40 and 80 listings. Always. Like always had 40 to 80 listings at any given time.
Yeah.
And then, that pulls you into the buyer side of the transaction, and that's not really where I wanted to be. So I built like a referral network, and that kind of slowly brewed up to where, they're like, hey, you keep giving me all these referrals. Why don't I just come work for you? And then, the business was growing. And then like the COVID boom, it was insanity.
Oh yeah.
And then right on the heels of that,
time.
Barndo was starting. And so I kind of had to like step away from real estate for a minute and focus just on Barndo. And, like I said, I still keep the brokerage. I still have agents that work inside of it. And it's just not a huge focus of my day-to-day life anymore. But I love it. It's like an addiction to get into real estate. And
it is kind of. Well, and one thing I like about you is that not only are you persistent, but I think you're like me in that you want to constantly be growing, right? And kind of that's where I found myself in TV. I was blessed to be able to reach all of my professional goals. And it's like, okay, what's next? I don't want to keep going into work and doing the same thing and not feeling like I'm growing.
Yeah.
And so that was another reason why I got into real estate. And Herlong Sotheby's has been really good because their standards are also high.
Yeah.
And so it's been really fun to get to know you and to hear your story, because real estate is not easy. And 40 to 80 clients, at a time, or, deals at a time, that takes a lot. You have to know your stuff, and you have to be honest, and you have to be able to follow through.
Yeah, it's a lot to manage.
Yeah.
I much prefer what I do now.
Yeah.
But like
well, it's exciting. Yeah.
Well, I joke all the time because like I've told that story, and I have agents like, let's do it again. And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, let's find another broker. Like,
Yeah.
But and for you to go into that Sotheby's world of like how you guys are set up, like again, that's a whole different spectrum of the business. And I think a lot of times people kind of look at real estate as like one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
They're not.
Right.
There's so many specific niches of where like people have really deep understanding of different phases of the game, and it really serves people well to understand that not everybody's the same.